Okay, so today we're going to tackle the job of repairing the fenders because both of them are cracked. So we're going to try and fix them by adding some fiberglass with resin, and hopefully we can fix the cracks good enough. So that's the plan. The first thing is stripping the fenders down so that everything is out of the way that we need to remove. So there was a weather strip that ran across here. I peeled that off already. And then you'll see it leaves this two-way tape on here that we want to remove. So the way that I like to do that is with this little rubber wheel on a drill. So you can see I already removed it here, and it takes it off nice and clean and doesn't leave any mess behind really. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the fender, and then we will tackle our repair job here. So you can see the two-way tape was down in here, and it came off nice and clean, and so that'll be ready for new paint or wrap or whatever we decide in the future. So this is our main crack here, and then we got one smaller one up here to deal with, and then we have a little bit of scuffing here, and then there's also one more spot right on the end right there to deal with. So overall the fender isn't too bad. All of our material is here, so if we go like that, you can see it really doesn't look too bad. And then same thing with this one. If we move it a little bit, there you go. And see, this one we can make line up too. So we're just going to reinforce the back so that it is structurally sound, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with our cracks visually on the outside. So let's flip the panel over and get to doing some fiberglass. Okay, so here are the materials that I've got to repair the crack in our fender here. So we've got our fiberglass resin, which comes with some hardener. So you mix this stuff with this stuff, and then you have some working time, and then eventually it dries hard. We've got our sandpaper to prep the surface. The first thing we're going to do is scuff that up. And then we've got our fiberglass mat here, which I've just got laid out here. So just fiberglass strands all attached together somehow. So the idea is we're going to sand this, and then we're going to mix our resin with our hardener. We're going to brush it on with our paintbrush on this prepped area. And then we're going to lay one layer of fiberglass sheet down, and then we're going to go back over it with resin, and then we are going to repeat that process another 2 times. So altogether we're going to have 3 layers of fiberglass mat on top of this, and then that should add plenty of structural rigidity to the panel. Yeah, so that's the plan. Let's get prepping. Alright, so we got our area sanded and cleaned, so it's ready for some resin. And then I also clamped it up here so it stays nice and flush. So it is still cracked through here. So I think we're going to go back in after and add some layers where that clamp is, but we kind of need it to keep the structure of the fender. And then I went ahead and made a little template out of newspaper. So this is going to be our shape that we cut out 3 pieces of. So you can see it just kind of overlaps the crack. So now we're going to go ahead to our fiberglass mat and cut out 3 of these for our 3 layers of fiberglass. So here is our 3 shapes that we're going to be putting on here. So now the next step is to mix up our resin. Over here, I've got this scale that is zeroed out with our mixing cup on it. So this way as per the mixing instructions for this, 1 ounce of this is equal to 10 drops of the hardener. So we're going to go ahead and mix these two up with however much resin I think we need for our 3 layers on the fender, and then we'll get to lay in some resin and fiberglass. We've got our first fender over here drying, looking good so far, and then I just got our second fender set up here on the table. So this one, we've got a crack that runs all the way along here, and we've got a piece broken off. However, we do have the piece and all the material to fuse it back together. So that's the idea. Let me show you what it looks like from the outside. So there's the crack from the outside, and then the piece that's missing goes a little bit like that, and doesn't look too bad, honestly. So there's holes where this piece was zip tied on by the previous owner, so we are going to patch those holes as well from the inside. Yeah, so we're going to get to work. Same thing as the other side, sanding the inside, cutting out some shapes, doing our measuring, and then laying the fiberglass. So one other concern is we've got this, I think it's like a structure piece they've got in here that is also cracked. And because it's cracked, we can't really lay down our fiberglass right to the crack that's the outside layer of the fender. So I think we're going to try and remove kind of from here to like here, this section of the structure, and it won't really be a big deal because we're reinforcing it by adding fiberglass anyway. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna take the Dremel to it and see if it can come out nicely with that. we just got our first part in the mail for the Corvette. As I was in the middle of doing fiberglass work, So not very great timing, but anyway, here it is. So let's open it up. Alright, here we go. So this is our new frame rail section, which is great. It came with way more than we need. Realistically, we only need, I'd say, probably from here forward. So you can see we've got this whole frame rail section, and it looks like it was cut off very properly, actually. So you can see in front of here where it mounts to the front crash bar. We've got pretty much all of our material. This is a little bent in here, but we might not even use that. Yeah, this looks really good. So you can see this is the weld right here, which is this weld right here. So it's awesome. It looks like they cut it really well. Yeah, it just sucks that it's bent there, but I'll hammer that back flat, I guess. And then we've got all of this epoxy here that I've got to grind off, and I know this time to do it outside. So anyway, that's good. Our frame rail is here. This is the main structural part of the job, and then we've got both of our fenders over here drying. Yeah, so this is all coming together. So we've had overnight actually for our fenders to cure up, and you can see how good they look. This crack is nice and tight. This one came out really good. And then over on this fender, this crack looks pretty good too. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And then same thing with this one. Looks pretty good. It still needs some cleanup. There's some fiberglass strands and some scuffing here that has to be buffed off. And then also got to cut away all the excess fiberglass here. But overall, not too bad. They're very strong. They're just as strong as they were from the factory, if not stronger. So with that being said, we've got our bumper over here now set up to be repaired. So this one's a little bit worse for the wear. But we have all of our parts for the bumper. So this goes in here somewhere. So here's the piece snapped in. All of the bumper is intact, more or less. We're not missing any pieces at least. So for this to hold it in place a little better, because I had issues with the fenders trying to stay in place with the big cracks. I think I'm going to put some tape over top of the outside of here to kind of hold it in place, so that while we're filling up the inside with fiberglass and resin, it kind of holds it in place better. So let's get to it. Alright, so we are all duct taped on the outside, and you can see the crack runs along here and through here. So I also taped where all the holes are so that our fiberglass doesn't kind of spill over to the outside, sort of like what it did on the fenders. So this is the first time that I'm fiberglassing, so I'm kind of learning from my mistakes here. But overall, I think this looks pretty good. Yeah, so we're gonna get to sanding now. So I went ahead and sanded this fender as flat as I could without using any filler. So you can see there's still a tiny crack running through there, but it is nice and smooth as a transition now. And same thing with this one. This came out really good actually, right from the fiberglass. This one needed some more work because the crack didn't want to line up great. But we got it nice and smooth, I think as smooth as we can get it. So the next step is to put some kind of filler putty in the cracks and then sand it down again. But currently I don't have that putty, so I need to figure out exactly what I need. So in the meantime, let's grab the other fender and we'll do the same thing to it. Alright, so we got our other fender here. You can see the crack runs along here, and we also have another one here. It's hard to see. You can see it a little bit. We have another crack there that we never did fill because it was underneath of the structure piece, which we now know it's just two-way taped on. So I think I'm going to remove that structure and then we're going to fix this crack underneath here. Alright, so here is the result of this fender. Our patch here and here all dried, and then also down here nice and dry, and then on the outside you can see this seam came out pretty good. And then these, there's a little split still, but that's okay. It's nice and strong, so we're just going to go ahead and trim up all of this, and then sand this panel to put some resin in, I think. I also went ahead on this other fender. I had some leftover resin from fiberglass in that fender, so I put some resin on the outside here, and it is now dry as well, so we're going to sand that up and then see how all of our cracks are looking. We got all of our resin sanded down. You can see there's still a crack here, but it's pretty smooth here. Little crack still there, that's you can feel. And then here you can see some of the holes from the zip ties got filled in, some of them didn't. But overall the crack is pretty smooth. So we're going to do one more pass of resin on here, and then hopefully it'll be ready for paint. Okay, so we got this bumper nice and trimmed up. The fiberglass is trimmed all the way around the body lines of the bumper. And now it was just the decision, do I fix this and try and repaint it, or do I just leave it? So I'm opting to paint this fender for sure, which is just drying up right now. And I'm opting to paint it because our crack here didn't line up very good and it looked pretty bad. Or over here, honestly, it's pretty smooth, but that would also make it easier to prep to paint. So to get both fenders and the bumper painted at a shop, you're looking at probably about $1,000. So I'm considering buying some spray cans and doing it myself. So using spray cans, normally the results look really bad, but with some post-paint work, with some wet sanding and polishing, you can make it actually look pretty good. So I am considering doing that. You can buy a spray can for 25 bucks. That's nice gloss black, should match this well. And that's another factor that I'm taking into consideration. Say for example, if this car was red, I wouldn't even be attempting this, because to match red paint is very difficult to do. And you can get a special paint reading tool that will read the color, and then that'll help you to accurately pick which color you are going to use. But with black, there are lots of different kinds of black, but even if it is a little bit off, it'll be less noticeable than with a red, for example. So I am kind of thinking of doing that. Yeah, I think I'm just going to let the fender dry up, and then we'll see where we're at.